Hey, Nikki and Drew. It is the 19th of December, and I just watched your video. Nikki, thank you for making a video. I also just got back from having Christmas dinner at Sarah's mom's house, where we exchanged presents. Because actually, so it's interesting, you talked about, one of the things you talked about was Christmas and how it stresses you out, Nikki. And my family has never celebrated Christmas unless we're celebrating with Christians. As a Baha'i, we never had a Christmas tree in my house growing up. And I never wanted one. I never cared. It's funny because that you said, because you're not a Christian, Christmas doesn't mean anything to you. And it's ironic because Sarah we were walking the other day and she was like, I just don't understand, all these, people who aren't Christians and why they celebrate Christmas. I'm like, Christmas isn't about Christianity. That's a complete farce. Nobody really believes that. So it's funny you said that. And it's not completely true because a lot of my coworkers are very strong Christians and they do Christmas about Christianity. But like I said, we've never done it. So what happens, we don't give any gifts among ourselves. My sister gets gifts for her nephews who are Christians, and we get gifts, and she gets gifts like for her mom and for her sister, and they give gifts to us, but we don't give presents for ourselves. So actually, Sarah's mom's going to Philadelphia, leaving on Friday, and so we went up and exchanged presents. Actually, I got a Kindle Fire, which is kind of cool. It's kind of funny. I can't remember. I told the story, but I think I already told you guys the story. If I didn't, and you care to know, let me know, and I'll tell you about Sarah's mom giving me a Kindle Fire in that process. See, that's all I care about is what I get. That was one of the things you talked about. I'm sorry that it's stressful for you, Nikki. And, it's really interesting because one of the things that Sarah does a really good job of is making sure that she does a really good job of lowering the stress level, which you might find surprising, but so like the cooking stuff, some of my kids like to cook. Bryn and Gareth like to cook. Carew doesn't. And they started cooking at a really young age, baking, Bryn in particular, and she's always loved it. And Sarah, whenever she bakes something, she never worries about it being perfect, so she just throws it together, and if it's bad, she just laughs. And she's like, oh well, we'll try it again next time, So that's actually a good thing. So Bryn made, a bunch of cookies for all of our neighbors. She made 6 different kinds of cookies and then made plates up and she hates talking to people, so she made then Gareth deliver them because Gareth's the extrovert in the family. So yeah, it's kind of funny to hear you about your making cookies with your daughters and it being stressful, because I watch Bryn or Sarah, and Bryn cooks kind of like Sarah. She just they don't really use recipes. They kind of know how to do something and they look at it and then neither of them measures particularly. They just throw in ingredients and kind of guess. I don't know. It seems crazy to me, and I don't like to cook, so I don't know, or bake. The other thing about Christmas is in our house, in Sarah's family, when they exchange gifts, everybody just tells everyone what they want and they get that, and so that lowers the stress level for gifts as well. Anyway, I'm sorry that Christmas is stressful for you. It sounds like the traveling is going to be a lot of fun, as long as that doesn't stress you guys out either and the weather's good. And it's too bad, because it's funny because you'll go to Skamania and then from Skamania to Bend or Sun River, and so you're still going to be, you'll probably go through Biggs on your way up to Sun River, and that's still an hour and a half drive from where we are. And this time of year, that road can be really bad. So, oh well, it'd be fun to see you sometime, but probably not at the expense of the stress it would create for you. Oh, you're going to the Seahawks game. That's awesome. I've been kind of excited at how well the Seahawks are doing. I've always kind of liked Pete Carroll, and it's nice to see them doing well. I like Russell Wilson as well. So I can't believe you guys are going to a Seahawks game. You could have gone to watch the Galaxy play Seattle in Seattle, and that would have been pretty exciting. I think there were like 60,000 people there for that. Maybe not. Maybe it was only like 45 or 50. But anyway. Yes, so let's see the travel. I'm not going to tell you where I'm going because I want you guys to figure it out based on video and various other things. So I am going on a trip at the end of January, but I'm not telling you where. I already told you part of it, but I'm not telling you exactly where. You have to figure it out. You mentioned that your hair is growing long. Actually, I noticed your hair in the very beginning of the video, and I like it. It looks good. So rock on. Maths, or maths as they say in Belize or England. They don't say math, they say maths. We're doing maths. Or actually in Belize they say mats. So, yeah, it's kind of funny you're doing maths with your kids. And that you're doing math counts because we had kids involved in math counts as well. Actually, Carew was really, really good at it and won. So Sarah coached the math counts team, the homeschool math counts team for like 3 years. I don't know, 2 or 3 years, I can't remember. And they won it a couple years. Carew, when Carew was on it, his friend Haval was on it as well. And Haval was a National Merit Scholar, and his dad has a master's degree in chemistry and is a math tutor in town, makes his living teaching kids math. And so he actually coached the math counts team at that point. And then Sarah took over when Haval moved up. But their team won our region and went to state 3 times, I think. Twice with Carew and once with Gareth on it. And so they had a good time. And it's funny because when they started talking about math counts, and actually John Norman, Haval's dad, came and asked Carew if he would participate on the team because he knew Carew was pretty smart. And I was like, God, I just don't like the idea of like turning math into a competition. It shouldn't be a competition. But then he really enjoyed it. He got lots of kudos for it. Bryn was on the team as well 1 year, the very first year, and she did really well too, even though she doesn't think of herself as being intuitively mathematical. So yeah, math counts. Cool. And actually, interestingly, guy who works for me now, who's a programmer, is now coaching the math counts, the homeschool math counts team, because he has one of his kids actually was like the really smart kid the year that Gareth went to state with the math counts team, and I think Ken took over coaching. You don't care about this. Sorry, I'm like rambling. That's pretty much how life goes. Football, and notice how I saved the football for last. Yeah, it's interesting because all those incidents you talked about, I'd only heard of the one of the Zenit incident. The fans who did a manifesto about how they're from St. Petersburg and they only want Northern Europeans who are heterosexual on their team. And then they got all freaked out because they were like, we're not racist? What? We're not racist. I mean, what do you think? The press is misrepresenting what we're saying. So, but I hadn't heard about all those other things, but those kind of things happen as well. There was a couple of years ago, actually, I was just telling the kids about the Zenit thing because Bryn and Eleanor were all up in arms about some Dutch ritual Christmas pageant where a white Santa Claus has a bunch of servants who all paint themselves black and go in blackface, and they thought this was incredibly racist and were really upset about it. And I was like, I don't really care. So I was talking about the Zenit thing because I mean that's like really overt racism. And then the other thing that's happened in the last few years is in Italy the racism is just unbelievable, and there was a Brazilian player and he was playing in a match against Juventus, I think, and fans were throwing bananas at him and making monkey noises, and he actually picks up the ball and walks off the pitch and starts crying. And that there were some Brazilian players on the other team as well, on Juventus, and they were like, trying to console him, and it was, just brutal. And that event actually, FIFA started an anti-racism program, but basically all they do is they call it their fair play program, and so it's all lip service, and there's no real bite to it. But yeah, football fans, soccer fans, it's just crazy. And I don't know, you probably didn't even hear about, I think it was earlier it was like in January of 2012, that in Egypt there was a riot at a soccer match and 70 people were killed. And that had political overtones as well, because the ultras, who are the super fans for that team, apparently were heavily involved in associated with the political movement there, and they think that there were political overtones. But there's a lot of craziness, and you're right that in America we generally see less of that. Although there's some really nasty stuff that goes on in sports. It's not as there's less violence, but yeah, it's not a good thing. And the thing about treating refs well, the refs actually in soccer have enormous power to control the game, and more than in U.S. football actually, because if they call a foul in the penalty box, they're giving the other team a goal. Essentially, you get it. So you can call a penalty kick, you can not call things, you can and giving red cards. I mean, so you give a yellow card, but you give a red card, it means that team loses a player for the rest of the game. They can't substitute in, and that's a big deal. That's a huge deal. So I don't think it's the lack of power the refs have, but I don't know what it is. I think it's a general. There's more of a visceral sort of a tribal association with football in Europe and in South and Central America that you just don't see in the U.S. In any sports really. And it's really interesting because there's this guy who I actually kind of am sick of him, is Bill Simmons, writes on ESPN. He goes under the moniker the Sports Guy, and he actually started out with his own blog called the Boston Sports Guy, and he was a big fan of Boston sports, and writes these really smart guy, writes these long expository pieces. And he actually went to watch the U.S. play Mexico in World Cup qualifying in Mexico City in Azteca Stadium. And the U.S., just the last time they played earlier this year, they played in a friendly down there and they beat Mexico for the first time ever in Azteca. But anyway, he went to this match and he was actually, he wrote about it and he said he had never seen, and this is a guy who's been to all the major sporting events. He grew up going to watch Celtics games. He went through the whole New England Patriots coming to become the juggernaut that they are now. He's been to Super Bowls. He's been to everything, and he went to this match and he said that at one point the U.S. was up 1-0 and they ended up losing 2-1, and he was with people in the press box and they actually said, well, at least we're going to get out of here alive, and they're only half joking. So yeah, it's pretty crazy. Anyway, I'm blathering again. So I'm in the process of trying to write a holiday greeting letter, and I'm trying to do something a little different, and it's really lame. And actually I was working on it last night and Sarah came in and saw it and thought it was hysterical. I'm still not so sure. I think she's jaded by my good looks, so I can't trust her opinion. But you guys will get to see it. Maybe I'll email it to you guys first, and for clearance, maybe I don't want to do that. Maybe I should just send it out. Anyway, I hope you guys both have a lovely holiday if I don't see you before then. Nikki, I hope you find some quiet places to make videos so that we can see them. Karu, I hope you enjoy your purple room, and I hope that you get the floor and the trim done soon. But then if you did that, you wouldn't have anything to do and you'd be bored, so maybe I take that back. I'll see you guys soon.